Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 1400 to 1500 part of my speed run. For those of you just joining me, my name is National Master Luke Calhoun. I am a nationally board certified teacher and a USCF chess master, and I am showcasing the Old Indian and the Philidor. I'm going to try to speed up the time controls from my usual speed runs because the last one I felt a little like Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings. I wasn't quite sure I could go back to the Shire after it took so long to gain 100 points at the 5-0 time controls. I'm not a super great bullet player, so there's a little bit of risk here, but I'm going to do my best to make this a little more fast paced for you viewers. And we have an Old Indian to start. I'm playing a 1392. And knight, the immediate e5 would have been fine too. That would have been known as the Ukrainian variation. But I'm going to play it just a little more standard and see kind of what white does. The main line for the club players is to play d5, and I'm going to play h5. I know this might look weird. I know it might look like, I got my troll mask on, but I swear it's not trolly. The idea is to play g6, bishop h6, and trade their good bishop for my bad bishop. It makes sense. Now I can't do that because if I play g6, they're going to play queen d2, and they're going to say like, no. So therefore I got to go this way. But this is still great because having a bishop on g5 means that I have some tactics in the position. Okay, so I'm not sure about this move. I think I can just attack this e4 pawn. So let's just attack it. I might be able to sacrifice immediately, but then this will hang at the end of that. So we'll play here first and see how they're going to defend this. So I have 1, 2 on it. And if they defend it that way, then I have this common trap of knight takes pawn. Classic Old Indian trap. The idea is if they take my bishop, I take back the knight, rescuing it. And if they take the knight, then I take their bishop. So they have a very difficult choice. And now my bishop is pretty spectacular, just kind of lighting up the board that way. It's not even really a bad bishop at this point. Yeah, h5 is a tricky move. It's an out-of-book move, and but it's approved by Stockfish, and I mentioned it a little in my course as like an idea of like just mixing it up against players who are a little booked up against the Old Indian, but also works great against those who aren't because bishop g5 looks like the best move, but it's kind of hard to play. Okay, I think I can just take that. My queen is defending my bishop, and now they cannot castle. Tricky. Normally they can. I mean, like there's like this weird aspect of this position here. Oh my gosh, I so badly want to castle and play pawn takes f5 takes, but h5 does have some downsides. It's like I'm not quite developed over on that side of the board. Let's just secure. I don't think there's any reason to rush, so I just want to make sure they can't kick my knight. It's not that I need my knight here the rest of the game. It's more that I want my bishop to be out, and my knight would retreat and block it. So Okay, I was also considering queen f6, but I think this is more direct. Okay. My opponent is definitely making it pretty wild. It's a good job on their part. But I am up a pawn still. Move that away. I really want to play queen g5, but I'm worried about knight f3. Maybe that's okay. Because it will tempo off their bishop. So they won't be able to play knight f3 just this moment. Then I'll be able to play queen here, threaten some mate stuff. And maybe... Okay, so now they don't have knight f3 on the table. Just threaten mate. Looks like they're going to have to move their queen up to block it. Threaten here. can fork, but they can't take back my bishop. Although it is annoying, I don't necessarily know I wanted to trade that bishop. That was not sly by me. Yeah, I thought for some reason they would take my rook on cruise control, but they don't have to. And now they have rook a3, yeah. Oh, could have played that better. Could have played that better. I got too hasty. I saw blood in the air and just tried to win. Okay, so I'm still up a pawn, but my position is, pieces are just a little bit decombobulated. And I would need to, like, adjust it for the chaos. I don't know which piece to fix first. They can check now that they've guarded the square. So I'm going to go ahead and okay, I forgot we're playing fast. So I have 20 seconds left. I was just still used to the 5-minute time control. I gotta move. So no commentary when I have 20 seconds. The game is also very wild, so I'm gonna have to just make decisions. Luckily, there's an increment, so I can play on with low time, but like, just the position is so wild. I mean, like, I don't know what's going on here. This. If they take me, I'll fork their rook and their king. Still threatening that. Ooh, I don't know if I have the heart to play 19 seconds. Again, I'm not a like terrific bullet player. When I coach high school chess, the high schoolers love to play some bullet chess. So I've gotten a little practice just because of their love of that time control. but I don't really know what white does here because again, okay, that's an interesting idea. Let's just do this. It's the simplest course. I was lucky to get that for free because of the discover check. What is this thing doing? This monstrosity of a piece. Yeah, king g4 is also going to be a little tricky for me. But I got to keep moving fast. I am up enough material. Okay, I will lose a knight here, but I'm happy to lose a knight just for like simplicity of play, which my opponent is not giving me. I just want to simplify. And then if I can just, okay. My position is starting to become comfortable. Yeah, okay. Right when it's starting to become comfortable, they lose on time, of course. Okay, let's try that again. This time I got to play a little faster. I can't just contemplate positions as deep. So as white, I'm losing a tempo. So this is the Philidor in disguise. I think you can do something better than lose the tempo, but for this video, let's just keep the tempo. I think I should defend it with the bishop or the knight. They both look good. Let's defend it this way. Okay, so usually if they play d5 too soon against you, you can play c3 and just trade a side pawn for a center pawn. Man, my nerves from playing with that 20 seconds for like 10 moves in a row from the last game are still on this. I gotta like calm them, like sip some tea, just like meditate a little bit. Man, it's rough. Okay, let's just castle. New time controls. Wow. Okay, so I want to play knight d2, but then they're just going to take and eat the d3 pawn, so this looks silly, but let's do it. I like that I have the bishop pair, and I like particularly that I have their good bishop. I might even consider closing this position down and just playing in that nature, in that way. But never mind, they're taking, so I'm going to continue to develop my pieces. The advantage here is when they take, I have this open b file. My pawn is going to stay back on c3 and just like keep the scary knight away. It's going to just prevent anything from coming at me. Not to say that they won't be able to. It looks like they're going to give me this move for free. I'm not really attacking e5, but I'm just going to kind of lightly pressure e5. Let's continue to develop our pieces actively. Attack the b7 pawn. And I'm going to develop the rest of my pieces. I've almost developed all of them. F4 or D4 is on the horizon. D4 is a little trickier because they're putting pressure there. But so if I can get my queen to C2, that might be an option. The one annoying thing is that when I put my queen on C2, they have knight G4 ideas, but I don't really have a solution to that. So maybe I put my queen on A4. This way, if they play knight G4, I can take, and then their queen will lose sight of the C6 knight. And so it's protecting this for just a second more till I can get H3 on the board. And of course, if they move this knight, then this will fall. This is one of the advantages to forcing B6 earlier, is that it just weakens some of these queenside squares so that I have tactical resources later. Okay, and that's not a bad idea, but now I'm going to play H3 to stop any foolery putting a knight on G4. Okay, so B5 is a not so subtle threat. I have knight takes pawn, and I think it works. Yes, I think this works. The point is that my bishop will attack their knight if they take. They have b5. I had to just analyze there was nothing forcing, and it is always scary when you have a knight here on the same file as your queen, because there are some tactics that can come up. So even when you see something cool, you always just take a moment to make sure you're not going to die. It's always important to make sure you don't die. In fact, this worry is still a worry here. Okay, a lot of complications. Knight c4, b5. I play queen a5 to take the knight. They take my knight. It's just crazy. I think I would rather just play knight b3 and return the pawn so that I know I can meet time control constraints. They'll take this a2 pawn at the end of this variation. I don't think it's best. I think like going into those complications is best, but with 1 minute and 18 seconds, you have to be like just mindful of your clock situation. And against the 1462, I don't think I need to do anything like too wild here. I'm just going to try to play positional chess, which is just a lot easier than getting into a tactical slugfest, especially if you're a positional player like I am. I can do tactics when I must, but with these faster time controls, we're going to just play this very positionally, which might also be more instructive because tactical positions are more concrete to the specific position on the board instead of a generalized feel for how you should be playing these positions. So tactics, they don't really have a move with that knight. I guess they have there. I was going to say that wasn't super scary, but maybe it's got a point. I thought for some reason like b5 was going to like appear on the board and things were going to get a lot more wild than this. This is still somewhat wild, but much less wild than I thought the position was going to be. I got to defend my bishop. The flip side to this is now I have 50 seconds to my opponent's 30 seconds. So that's a pretty sizable time advantage. And also I have a pretty good, like solid position. Okay, I want to play d4, but this pawn will hang. I don't think there's any way to trap my queen, although they would definitely want to. So I'm going to guard this pawn so I can play d4. let's just play d4. Queen d4 is also really interesting. Maybe that's best, but kind of want their pieces on the board because d5 threats and stuff keep the position very much alive, and this move obstructs their knight maneuvers, so it's hard for them to get to move. They've got to move. They're at 8 seconds. Now my queen is obviously fine and free, and I also have pin ideas on this long diagonal. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Let's move up. I don't know. Again, like there's a lot to calculate, and we just don't have time. But I guess they literally don't have time. But yeah, I think okay. The computer is saying I have a 1.5 edge here. I believe it. I have a lot more center space, but still would have been a complicated game if they had been able to rush it. A very well played game by my opponent. Now playing a 1404. We'll play the cow. Because I guess I've got milk. This isn't really the cow again. This is a Philidor. Now we're in a Philidor. And they're playing again the club player main line. Or not even the club. The main line is to just trade the queens. But this is a really popular line nonetheless. And what I want to do is take here and make sure that there's not a knight here. So what I'm going to do is put a knight here and double attack the queen and the... Well, okay, I got to get out of that pin. I double attack the bishop and the pawn in order to get them to take back the pawn. That's kind of what I want here. And so let's see it in action. Attack the bishop, attack the pawn. Maybe introducing h3 first would have been a good idea. And maybe I can win a pawn with just knight takes pawn. Those positions tend to get pretty wild, but I don't think I'm risking too much by going for that. Yeah, let's do it. This is a motif in the Philidor and the Old Indian, is being able to retreat back or threaten the bishop. Sometimes you have to worry that they're going to play knight takes knight and knight takes c2 check at the end of the line. So that was my pause, is because your queen does end up out of bounds. But here, what I can do is just take their knight if they do that. So I can just take this. And yeah, we can just trade. Although they are winning this pawn, but I'm winning this pawn. This is actually much more messy than I anticipated. Yeah, this is always the danger of doing these tactics. Well, okay, they should have taken on d3, because now I just castle and I'm up a clean pawn. If they'd taken on d3, the danger is if I take here, they also take on e4, and so yeah, I wasn't wild about my position. The tactics were a little head spinning. But such is the 3-2 life. Play bishop e3. If they had taken, I would have opened up my rook, which they're not obliging. Fine, white. Fine. I guess I could take this, but I don't want to activate the rook. So let's have them move the rook, and then I'll maybe take. Just gain some space here. I think like a6 might happen in the future. So now this gives me the option to play b5. I can also move my bishop without them like rerouting their bishop to a more dangerous square. And now I can take, because there's no rook opening up. In fact, my rook is opening up. Do I trade it for the d pawn? I don't know if I need to. Let's just play this safe. Again, I'm going to play just very solid. We're going to defend the d3 pawn. Maybe, but my rook is a little weird over there. This rook needs to get into the game. I can like go all in with rook a7 and get into like a race where they take d3 and I take a b7, but I'm up material, so I don't think I need to just risk a ton. I just expand in the center, and I have good pieces. So up next is maybe e5, and then I have to decide whether I want my rook to be a dragon on the queen side or, get with the rest of the army who are hollering Red Rover. red rooker get on over to f1. So they're calling for more assistance on the king side, which also makes sense. Okay. Yeah, let's go over to the king side. It just makes sense to just be consistent on one side of the board instead of being spread too thin. Like there's some like queen c6 ideas, and the rook is just out of play there. Okay. There is no threat with this move because the pawn is pinned, thanks to that one. So I don't really understand the idea. I think I'll just play e5 and see what they do. And so if they take, then I take that rook. If they don't, then I think I can take the f6 pawn. They can't take here again because it's pinned. And now, no, I think I want a rook. Even if they trade a queen for two rooks, I want a rook before they traded a queen for two rooks. So I think this should take me happily home. They're going to make it a little tricky for me, but I'm just going to trade the queens. We're not risking anything. We're just going to convert the rook up position. 1 minute, 35 seconds on my clock. Yeah, that's plenty of time. So they resign. A good game. Good game. So now I'm playing a 1391. They play e4. Philidorable. This is going to be an attack on the e-pawn. I don't think they drop it at this rating range. No, so we're going to play e5. d5 will be what we had last time. This is the most common line where they trade the queens. This is very hard for white, though. Like, very hard. I don't think they often don't realize that even though they've deprived me of castling rights, it's white who comes under a lot of pressure here. So the idea of bishop e6 is to stop them from playing their best move here, and also to mosey on over when they check me down the long diagonal. The nature of black's edge is that this piece is really bad. So when I play c6, which I will, this piece won't be able to move very much. And yeah, they can play there, but I'll easily guard this, and then I'll still play c6. So that's not really a problem. Oh, the idea is to play c6, king c7, check into this Hilton on c7, and then let the pawns flourish into the wilderness. And behind those pawns is a nice rook who's just going to stare at white from far away and generate a lot of counterplay. So we're going to continue that plan. It's a simple plan, but it's a nice plan. They have this outpost, but it doesn't actually attack anything. You can say nothing here to attack. Ooh, this was a pretty good move. Probably should have played b5 right away to stop this, because I do like that bishop. This bishop is usually such a problem, and my bishop is such a beast. So, well done, white. I'm still going to pawn storm them. Let's start here and just kind of put some pressure there. And then we'll start the pawn storm. And it continues. This is not really a pawn storm, but it's just like I'm just keeping the initiative. Keeping the initiative. Taking back the knight looks good. Taking back with the pawn looks good. Taking back with the pawn stops the knight from coming in. Taking back with the knight starts a reroute there. They both look very good. I'll take back with the knight just so I can put the bishop there. I think I could have gone either way, though. Attack the knight. Then I'll get back to pawn storming. Back to pawn storming. The tricky thing for white here is that the d file looks great, but there's nowhere to go. They're just kind of staring at nothing. Okay, so they sometimes have knight h6 staring at that f7 pawn. That's really their main idea in these positions. So I want to be mindful, but not overreactive to that idea. So I'm just going to continue to play here. I can always play rook f7 or rook g7 if they do that. And I don't know where that knight's going. Okay, so they're blocking things up. I would love to live there. Love to live there. Okay, so let's play rook b8. And I'm going to go for c5, b4. And I'm just going to like guard that square so they don't do any like trickery here. And also just get my bishop out of the way. I want this square so badly for other pieces. I want like my pawn to be there. I want my knight to be there. There's so many. Ooh, and they're letting my knight be there for free. So I'll do it. It is going to be hard to play b4 without c5. So, but that said, it's going to be hard for them to double. Tricky, tricky. How do we proceed? Okay, here. Maybe here. They will get this square, so that's why I want to push this pawn last. No rush to push that pawn. And I don't know, they've got to like figure out moves to make in the meantime. Okay, let's go for it. It's a little thrilling. Like whenever the c pawn moves, it's always scary because they can put a rook here. Okay, so they're coming here as soon as I push. Is there any rush to push? Oh, well, they're coming here. That's where they want to go. Okay, so let's move our king up and just make sure that when they play here, they're not winning a pawn. And I could defend this by playing bishop g7. That was my original intention, but then check. I'm a little worried about a perpetual. I guess after king b6, I'm just letting them in with their rook. King c7, they check back. Then king b7. I think I've avoided a perpetual. Let's do that. I don't want to lose a pawn just yet. Although maybe sacrificing it was best. It's very unclear to me what was best in that position. Okay. I'm okay trading here. And I've changed my mind. I'm a little worried about them infiltrating with their rook on a check. So I'm switching to this file. We're just going to play this a little solid. And we're going to double up. Play f5. Sometimes, like, and I think I misplayed aspects of this position because I shouldn't have given them as much as they have. Like, it's a bummer that I couldn't get off b4. I had to have guarded this a little better. They have a threat of 97 winning my rook, so let's make sure I don't lose material. But then they have another perpetual. So many perpetuals. So check. And then I have to keep... Oh, no, then I can play b7. Okay. Yeah. No perpetual. No perpetual. Oh, but they can take here. So maybe c4 is better. God, this is not ideal. I'm going to have to play... well, now it's ideal, but I don't deserve that. It's like they hurt me. They're like, he's not they're like so concerned for me. They're like, Calhoun, you look stressed. Here you go. But that was allowing them into the d5 pawn. It's always risky to place d5. I should have probably maneuvered a little bit before I committed there with their knight there. Maybe even traded off one of the pairs of rooks so they didn't have any d-file pressure before going into something like that. Would have been ideal. And this should be not so hard. So the thing about having the extra piece is you have the better king. So like I have infinite tempos. So they're going to run out of pawn moves eventually. And I will not run out of bishop moves. So like if they play here, they lose this pawn. And so they have one more tempo, but eventually their king's going to have to move. And then I can come into the chicken coop and go eat stuff. So see, I just waste tempos. The bishop makes your king stronger. It's not just about winning with the bishop. And they're running out of pawn moves. So, yep. So then now they have to have a concession. I could go this way or this way. I like this way because it's easiest. They don't have any counterplay here. I can just eat the pawns. Just really quickly. There. They might. I don't think they have anything, but let's not take that risk. Okay. Yeah, that's a little too risky. So instead, I'm just going to go eat these. And their king is just really slow to get in the game. I don't know, maybe I could play it loud a5 b6, but like a5 b6 is the idea is they're just going to sacrifice pawns, and then even if I take this way, they'll just run the pawn. They won't even take back. Would have been their idea. So I'm just not taking anything because I don't want their king in the game. So I'll just keep the pawn there. And I'm going to do do, and then it wins. Okay. Very good game by my opponent. I misplayed some of the tactics there, and they should have had a really good game. This is the Vienna game. So I'm going to attack the pawn and then play e5. There's lots of different ways. c5 would have been the Grand Prix. I've never seen this move before, but I imagine that with a lot of pawn moves, I can just play in the center and things will just kind of fall apart for them. That's usually why they can't play on the wing so much. Okay, so d3 makes sense. We're kind of in like a reversed situation, right? So I'm going to play bishop c5. My goal is now they can't castle because of this early f move, f1 move. And then I normally put the knight on d7, but I see no reason why not to put it on this active square, given that it's so readily available. Okay, not a bad move. Let's take here. They're threatening knight takes pawn with this pinned. And I'm going to unpin it because I don't want drama in my life. I prefer my games to be like rom-coms, not horror movies. So, fun, lighthearted, lots of joking, pleasantries, happy endings. Not maybe the killer will win type stuff. So, okay, this is very greedy. I get it, but they're allowing a check here, possibly. I could play knight d4, trying to open that up immediately. They could even castle queenside. I worry that if I trade the knights, which is the intuitive move, they're going to have a nice check at the end of this. But I still really like this move. Just because I will get a check if they trade. Okay, well, now I just take their queen knight. I think in their head they played knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and they played queen e2, and then they just played queen e2. That happens to me all the time. So I feel for you, White. I feel for you. Okay. So it feels like my opponents are playing well. They're like doing really well at this rating range, but then they're getting stressed and then they're just dropping something. So now I'm playing a 14-10. My rating is 1445. Moving on up in the world, and I'm gonna play this queen in game or queen trade line a little better. Okay, so with knight f3, I have to guard this pawn. I don't want to block in my bishop, so I guard it with this one, so that way my bishop can come over. Okay, attacking that pawn. I can defend it with king e7 or rook f8. Let's defend it with rook f8, because I kind of want my king to go that way. I'm going to play h6 next, and then I'm going to pretend that they didn't do that. This is like, okay. Now I have to play king e7. Now, that said, like, this looks very aggressive. It's like they're just really going at me. They're trolling a little bit, but it's fine because they're all going to bounce back. They're going to have to leave. I'm going to just insist that eventually they walk away, and then I'm actually tempoing off their pieces for this early attack. Next is, okay, I will happily trade a rook for 2 minor pieces. Okay, not everyone knows that a rook and a pawn versus 2 minor pieces highly favors the 2 minor pieces. But it is true. The 2 minor pieces are just much better. I'm going to play this, and the goal is to just make this knight worse. Other ideas was knight c6 to play knight there. That would have been very reasonable. This is more in the style of the Philidor defense, though. Just immobilize our pieces. And then we'll develop our pieces. No need to rush. When you have the 2 minor pieces, you just develop them. It doesn't make sense. You can't have an advantage if you don't get them out. So I'm just getting out my minor pieces. This would be even better if the queens were on the board because of the propensity to attack with the minor pieces. The thing about the early game is there's only one file for the rook. So if you look, like this is their extra rook. It's going to go maybe to d1. But when it goes to d1, there's no way in because these minor pieces are just, they're going to block everything up. In the meantime, my minor pieces have no problem kind of expanding. And white does have an extra pawn, but another way to look at that is that it's another thing to attack. It's yet one more thing for them to babysit. So, and it clogs files because extra pawns are on files, meaning the rook can't see. So if this pawn was gone, it would be sad for white, but also the rook would be just so much more better in terms of being an active piece. So it's very like push and pull when it comes to things like that. In this position, my bishop is a little loose. It's undefended, which they're like already eyeing it. A little sneakiness. And I have options for it. I can either come up here, that would be a defensive move, or here would be slightly active, even though I kind of want my knight there. I am allowing them b4, but I don't see the problem. This could be a weakness later. I would love to play my rook here on the one active file and like start to put some pressure on that pawn in multiple directions. I do have the bishop pair. The one advantage of bishop c7 is bishop e3 wouldn't have been an option. And let's continue to play very actively. Attack that. And also now I can take off the bishop and double isolate their pawns if they play bishop e3. So the only bummer here is that my knight is trapped if I take. But I have a lot of tempos to rescue it. In fact, I think I have enough tempos to rescue it. At the very least, at the very worst, they'll take it and I'll be down the exchange, which is always somewhat livable because of the earlier thing. And this is very double-edged. Okay, I have this check that I can play at any time, but let's let them take May because that way I can develop my knight in response. And it's just more options. Now I'm threatening to get out with a discovered check. If they take this, I have 2 pieces on it, so I'll just take them back. So I think they'll play like a move like king there. And that's check, so I have to take. I don't have time for an intermezzo discovered check. Okay, so we still have a battle unfolding about whether that knight can be rescued. So I guess they're going to play here to like attack it again, but if they do, then they lose this pawn, so it's not so tricky. So it's not so easy. Maybe rook e2. Let's just stop them from doing that, and I'll guard 2 with 1 piece. The only thing I don't like about this is I really, really want to like put one more. If I can just put one more attacker there. So maybe like rook f4 would have been better instead of playing just this defensively. But the tactics are much more complicated after rook f4 because there's like moves like g3 and I don't know. It's just a little bit wilder. Although now I'm going to go for it. So I'm going to rescue the knight while developing things. Did they have b5, maybe trapping my bishop? No, their knight was hanging. Yeah, now the bishop is not trapped. In fact, I'm going to trap the rook a little bit. They can get out with rook a8, but just like keep it back a little bit. Okay, so if I move my knight, my pawn falls. Therefore, I want to be mindful of that. King e6. I'm just going to try to activate my king and get... If I can just untie this Gordian knot, this position is very much winning for me. Just have to make sure I don't lose anything. Their rook is very active. That's the one bummer about my position is I have to just contend with this active rook. I don't want to activate their other rook, but I would love... There's almost checkmate ideas in these positions, but I need a pawn here at the end of that in order to see that to fruition. And do this, it just ties them up and then makes threats on the back rank. my knight guards the pawn. I think here. If they take the pawn now, I can play rook here, and then I don't think they can stop the checkmate. So I think I got him. There's not any checks that don't lose a rook. So yeah, it ends the game. Well played by my opponent. And that's a little bit of the queen trade line played a little more precisely. I'm going to waste the tempo. And then it looks like we're in an Old Indian. I love the Old Indian. We'll just play e4 because that's more standard. Bishop e2 might have been objectively the best move, but this happens. Okay, so we achieve this. Can I do my normal trick? It's always tricky. So knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, bishop takes, knight takes, and then I think I have c3 at the end of it. I think I have c3 at the end of it. Yeah, but then if they do this, then there. So the idea was, like, if I just go back for a second, if they had played knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, if I take back with the queen, they fork me here. So I would have had to play c3 to kick this knight, and that knight's hanging. And then I think I'm okay. But those positions are wild. If you have, in classical chess, it's not a problem. But with these time controls, it can be like a little bit tricky to make sure that you're going to be all right. Okay, so this knight is clearly going to c4, so I'm going to play a4 to stop b5. And I know it's going there. Well, I guess knight f3 was fine, but I just like this square because my bishop can come out. I can still play f4. Okay. My last move was a mistake because they can threaten. Well, actually, it's okay. I thought I was going to have to lose that bishop. I didn't want to lose that bishop, but I don't. I forgot my... Okay, well, I will take that bishop. So that move was a mistake by them because these dark squares are weak. So positionally, this position is very good for white. And no, I don't want to trade that. This bishop is now much better because of these weak dark squares. So I'm going to keep this as a critical attacking piece. It is also pinning them. And I'll just play this, threaten this. And I'm just going to continue to pry at that pawn. If they take, then h6 could fall later. Even though it's tempting for them to take just to get out of this pin, because that's not fun for them either. Okay, and now I'm giving up the bishop, but importantly, I'm winning a pawn. So this is my second pawn, and it's a really important pawn because the king is going to feel drafty. There's a cold shudder going on over on that side of the board. Do I allow knight f4 for this move? Or do I just play f4 and stop it? I'm just going to play f4. Well, no. f4, I really am sacrificing the pawn back. So I'm going to take. Because if they took here and I took back, this knight would be loose. So I could not take back in the event they took. I would still have a really good position. That was the tough thing. Because like now after knight f4, they might be able to open some files and get some kind of counterplay, which I want to like neutralize given my material edge. Okay, but now I'm very happy because I can play this move and stop knight f4 and also threaten doing things myself. Let's threaten to take the knight. Let's assist the knight going to f6. Okay. They have to lose the exchange here. And okay, I'll play this with check. Now I just want to trade. I'm not interested in winning more material. I'm playing this only because it comes with tempo on the knight and helps me guard my pawn on h6. And now that we have a fork, and yeah, this position is starting to become easier for me to play. I just need to trade the pieces. Just let me trade. Let me trade. Okay, this is the way to trade because I can play queen here. And I don't need to. Like, rook e1 is a checkmating threat, and it's probably easy enough. But playing up a rook and this many pawns is the simplest path to be winning. Okay, so I'm now 1460, playing a 1432, a c5. So we're going to pretend that's the English, and we're playing a reversed English. And there's different ways to play against the English, but I like this f4 idea. And I'm just going to play knight f3. My bishop's going to come here. And this is my home base. Look at that pretty pawn chain. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. Just admiring the pawn chain. I play it every game these days. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. They usually, if you can cut out, like, because there's this long diagonal waiting, but I guess they're not. And I'm okay if they don't. Ooh, they might want to castle queenside. Is that what they're doing? Oh, interesting. Okay, if they do, I want to like open up files. So let's play a3, play b4, just in case they want to go that way. I'm happy to indulge them in a castle queenside fest. And I don't need to like rush. You know, this is good, but again, there's no rush. Okay, so I can take, would open up the C file would be the disadvantage. The advantage is this would be a pawn weakness of taking. The other option is bishop d1, which also looks good. I think I'll take. And then maybe I'll pressure this later. What I like about this is if they castle queenside now, there's this drafty corridor, and I can easily open lines with c3. So that was kind of a tiebreaker for me. And later in the game, I can play like knight d2, knight f3. Yeah, they are castling queenside. Look at that. Trying to attack me. The slow and h-pawn. Well, actually, maybe they're not castling at all. I would love to open up the center. Okay, if they're not going to castle, let's just go for it. Let's open up everything. Their king is in the center. There's two ways to play against players that don't castle. One is to like not attack, but just in-game them, because the rooks don't connect, which means if you fight them on either file, you will eventually kind of have an edge. The other path is to just attack up the center. I'm going this way just because I want this file to be clear instead of to f3, although knight f3 looks more normal. I also like that they can't play queen c5 against this move with the attack on the pawn. Queen b6 seems a little more distant. Knight here was another option, but I think they could take and just... I didn't have anything immediate, even though it looks like there's some kind of discovery. So that's why I didn't play knight d4. Pawn takes was fine, but then bishop takes, and then there was just a lot of pressure there. So it looked like they were also tactically fine there. While attacking this pawn, I'm a little less clear on what they're going to do. I have like moves like f5 planned, and I'll just get out my pieces. Okay, I'll take here. I don't really want to take that way because then they guard the pawn indirectly, and I'm planning on taking this. I have to be extremely careful when I take it because there will be pins on this long diagonal. At the very least, I have c3. At the very least. Okay, this is one of those... I need my daughters in the background are yelling, "Who let the dogs out?" This is the difference from like making a course on like Chessable and this is... I never really know. Okay. Wow, this is getting wild. Okay, but I think the wilderness is favoring me. They have this very strong check. They also have check and kill the knight this way, but then their bishop is hanging. So it's very confusing. Their king is still in the center, and discovered checks abound. So I think this is the safest place. I should be thinking about what I want to do against that. Ugh. How crazy, right? Okay, I could defend this pawn. Seems most reasonable. Let's defend it. I worry about this weakness later in the game. Oh my gosh, I'm so worried about that weakness. And my minor pieces are not totally out, so maybe I should just let that fall. Okay. I'm going to do this, but I have some major concerns. If they could switch these two pieces, I don't have a dark square minor piece to guard h2. So that is my big fear here. But I have 46 seconds, so I don't really have much choice to just like sit on my position and contemplate things. Let's attack the bishop with the rook. And also kind of like eye that pawn. Might as well collect it. Not so much because I need it. It actually activates the rook, but because it would activate my bishop and connect my rooks. My rooks are not connected. So there's a little bit of worry there. I think rook d4 is probably the best move, because I'm going to have to block my bishop with my queen. I'll have to like retreat here. Retreating there is too dangerous because of rook there. And I don't know if I still live, but it's not always fun. And there's also rook h6 ideas. Yeah. So we're going here. Definitely going here. Okay. The rook has improved, but they also have lost a rook if they do this. Can I take? I'm really worried about taking. I have no choice. I'm running out of time. I'm worried about here and then here. They're playing exactly what my greatest fear is. Okay, if I can just... Okay, yeah, I got it. Trading queens. It's always scary when you go into the lion's den because you don't know if you have a way out, but like luckily I had a way to just stay active, and I had a sense that I did, but it's always scary in the moment because you know, if I played like bishop f3, bishop f4, there's no way to stop that mate. I'm just like trying to run, and things get just wild. So I'm glad there was a path out. And now I have 42 seconds and I'm a rook up, so the rest should be technique, as they say. My opponent played a marvelous attack and just aired at the last minute. So a very good game by Tel Valera. Okay, I'm 1467. Look at my fancy rating. I'm playing a 1471, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to waste tempo. E5. You know you want to. And now we're on a Philidor. We should probably defend it like that. And then Philidor. Or as Just.com calls it, the cow, because I started with this move order. It's always hurtful when they call me a cow, but I guess I have to thank Anna Kremling for that, for naming it the cow. She should have just named it the reverse Philidor. Of course, she plays it very differently, with like knights here and then knights here, I think. Okay, so same thing. I think that generally engine evaluation is that it's about equal, but I much prefer playing the white pieces in this position. Okay, so this is pinned, and therefore this is attacked. So the simplest way to get out of it is to just move the king. They could play knight here, but then this they drop the pawn, and my knight actually guards the bishop too, so I can take back without having to worry about any shenanigans. And the same thing. This happens surprisingly a lot. They just like forget that they have to guard e5, and they want to make a knight move forward, and then it's suddenly very good for me. Yeah, these positions are tricky. I don't blame them. The opening, and it's not like I'm playing like the French defense or the Caro, like on one, like you study up on mainline theory, but like the Philidor, and you don't even know, because in this case they're playing black, so it's inverse, it's a mirror world, and so you can get very confused. Like maybe they're a d4 player, maybe they play the London, and suddenly, unbeknownst to them, they're playing e4 and into this sideline. Okay, I'm not going to allow a discover check, so I'm taking. If I had moved to the right, they would have had well, actually, it wouldn't have been so bad. Okay, at any rate, this wins the exchange. So it's not that that was bad. It's that this is better. We'll go with that. Okay, just check for checks. I'm taking this one because I want them to recapture and make their rook bad, not recapture and make their rook good. So whenever you have a choice between two rooks, think about, usually take the weaker one. And that seems counterintuitive, but the weaker one is always replaced with the stronger one. So the stronger one became the weaker one when I took there. And now I'm just going to play very normal. This pawn chain is very strong. The knight cannot enter the game. The bishops are kind of blocked in. The best they're probably going to be able to do is trade. The only problem for me is this a1 rook, which I can solve in the usual fashion with a pawn storm, not allowing knight there this time, and not dropping a bishop either. Yeah, let's just trade. I think taking back with a knight was the stronger choice because they are getting this square and they're threatening bishop d3. So I was a little more worried about that. But I am okay here. I have to... There's like some counterplay they've got going. It's very frustrating to deal with. But at the end of the day, I'm up the exchange. So I cannot complain that they're getting some counterplay for the exchange. King b3 is probably better. Okay, now we're fine. I think moving the bishop was better to just threaten knights there. Now I'm going to just... They can take that pawn. I don't care. I'm just trading rooks. Not going to allow them to activate their rook. And I'm not going to play passive like king b2 or a3 and allow them something. This is just going to be an easy win. So the reason why a rook is better than a minor piece is because the king is better, yet again. So I can always lily pad on the dark squares, while their king is going to be totally cut off by my rook. So it's not really the rook that needs to deal the killer blow, although rook here would have... Rook to the 7th is the obvious move there that I missed. But it's that, and I'm so excited to illustrate this concept that I just want to win with the king. But it's that my king is just so much better. And my passed pawn is in the middle. I don't need to trade pawns. So usually the person who's a little worse off is wanting to trade pawns, and the person who's a little better is wanting to keep the pawns on the board. Because if enough pawns trade, then maybe the bishop can hold. Because there's less to guard. Right now, black's going to have to just defend everything, see? And so that's much more stressful than if they had traded. And they're doing a very good job of... I'm going to just continue to make their king worse. And then I think I can run. Yeah, king there. So I could push, but then they'll get in front of it. So I'm going to play here so that I can play my rook and push their king away from the pawn. And now with their... See, this is what I'm talking about. Like the rook is like a laser. It's like in those spy movies, you know, those red lasers where if you trigger it, you trigger the alarm. That's just what the rook does. It's like the king cannot move. So then when you have these two versus that, and then eventually you just win material. And then now I can just attack things with my rook. And eventually they'll lose material. And I don't even need to gain these pawns because a rook and a king fates. So, and I'm not going to stalemate this. Just come here and come back. Okay, 1475. Against the 1475, we have an Old Indian. Again, in my course, I give like d6 as a possibility, which the advantage of d6 is they can't play this, the Trompowski. But not a big deal. This is not the end of the world. So they're trying to double my pawns. I'm not going to let them. I'm going to just play, well, so usually I just play h6. The goal here is to play bishop e7 and then just continue my Old Indian ways. And I'm just kind of going to do that. So I'm going to play bishop e7. And we're going to play the Old Indian against the Trompowski anyway, as much as they tried to stop me. They can't stop me. Against this line, this is really tricky because, like, at the top level, playing e5 a tempo down from the normal variation is not as good. So c5 is like a better way to go. But I'm just gonna, because I'm at this rating range, I'm just gonna enter this variation a tempo down. Because it's more illustrative of some of the old Indian positions you'll get. And it's a tempo down because normally I'm able to play e5 on one move had they played knight c3. But exposing the tempo advantage for white is just so hard. So, okay, concrete threat, threatening e4. So how are they going to deal with that is a big question. That kind of makes sense. They're getting out of the way. Could play here. I don't necessarily want to give them this square just yet, and so I'm just going to castle. And next move is probably c6. Yep, lock in that knight. Usual protocol. I don't really want to give him that square. Let's just play rook e8. I want to play queen c7 at some point to just guard this pawn so my knight can move. However, I don't want to enter into a pin situation on this diagonal where this knight can't move. So rook e8 guards the bishop so that my queen is a little more free. Okay, they're attacking this pawn. I think I can just defend it like this, but I have to just check the tactics, especially the pin. And I think the tactics work out, so I'm going to play bishop f8. This bishop is going to be hanging at the end of this. That's key. So, and if they ever take, I think I can take with the rook. I may have miscalculated this tactic. Actually, this is like a little wild. I think maybe they can play knight takes pawn. I hope they can't. Did I have to play queen c7 there? I might have had to play queen c7. Or queen a5. Probably queen a5, because I didn't want to pin the queen. So knight takes pawn. Let's just look at it before they, just in case they don't play it. Knight takes pawn. That way you can see it. Knight takes knight. Queen takes queen. Rook takes queen. Bishop takes bishop. Rook takes bishop. Bishop takes. Then I get my rook to the 7th. Actually, that's very unclear. I guess they decided they don't like it. Okay. Well, queen a5. Let's go. ac7 looks okay too. I really don't like this bishop. I think I'm going to ask that bishop to perish with knight h5 at some point. But I need to guard this pawn before I can move that knight, because otherwise they just take this bishop, this thing, and then they can take it. So, but then again, if I have this on the board and then they take this, then maybe I have this as an intermezzo. And suddenly, but then they have this, and then I have this, and they have that check, and they win a pawn. You know, I wish they wouldn't give me headaches. You know, I'm gonna just play queen c7. I'm gonna guard this pawn so I can play knight h5 next. Queen a5 was also an idea. I was a little worried about a3, b4 for free because they kind of want to drill up support on the queen side anyway. So now I'm playing knight h5. The goal is to take out this bishop because this is a little bit nasty, and then I can at least try to win with the bishop pair. I also have a slightly better knight than theirs because their knight is having a hard time moving forward. Although, unlike the Philidor, them not playing e4 means that they do have knight e4 in some circumstances. So it's not totally the same as our usual positions. And I think I want to play here. Attack this pawn. And also, I kind of like that bishop. This is a pretty good bishop. My bishop is not doing anything. I need to activate my pieces. Can't just play down a bishop and a rook. Okay, and I'll take. Mainly so that I can activate my rook. Although, if I activate the rook, they can take, and something has to go off that. So I'll play g6 first. That way, I have bishop g7 at the end of a lot of these lines. And look at that diagonal. Isn't it beautiful? It's so beautiful. So I'm going to play rook here, because I don't want them to double and get any kind of counterplay on the file. I think I have a slight edge with the better bishop, but it's nothing to write home about. It's just a tiny, teeny edge. And the bishop could come here. But mainly, I think I'm going to play f5. The goal for this is to just stop knight e4 and just kind of really play against this minor piece here. I do need to do something about this. This piece is totally blocked in by that pawn. And yes, okay, I get the point. Play king f7 and guard it. This knight is poor here, but my king is a little more vulnerable, so maybe it's just kind of a trade-off. My knight's guarding the checks for now, though they can kick the knight potentially with c5 later. I think this wins a piece. They can't guard the knight anymore. Yeah. c5 is an idea. That's probably best, because if I take it, they don't lose a piece. And otherwise, they at least get a knight. And this is the exchange. Continue putting a pawn there because it's vaguely threatening. And let's attack it like this. My opponent does not have much time, and neither do I. Let's guard the g6 pawn. Okay, they're out of time. Good game, though. That was a good game. It was fun. It's getting fun up here at this rating range. 1483, playing against a 1453. And I'm starting to have a lot of fun. These games are, like, I like good games. They're much more thrilling than games where I just get to win a queen because it's placed in front of my piece or something. So again, we have the queen trade variation. It's all the rage at this rating range. As you see, when I start moving up, you're going to see a lot more knight f6, like keeping the tension instead of trading these queens, which is much better, because trading the queens is like equal at best, and only if they really know it, while those other lines, white can hope for a small advantage. And by white, in this case, remember, I'm reversed, so whoever's playing against the Philidor can hope for the slight advantage. My colors are all mixed up. Okay, so I'm going to guard this pawn, not let them take. And c3 is on the agenda. Bishop here is on the agenda. Take this out, take that. The usual plan. And sometimes, again, you'll see players accidentally play here, just trying to put up the pressure, and I'll take the pawn and just winning. If they ever take this, I'm always taking with the pawn, because I don't want to lose this pawn. This is kind of a good move, actually. The idea is to, like, come up here and attack the pawn again. So it's decent. And I forget in my course what I recommend against it. Let me just think for a half second. I think it's always good to counterattack, right? Bishop b4. But knight h4 also looks really good. I'm sure that's a line. Yeah, I think counterattacking is the best. So I'm going to threaten to take and take this pawn, which I'm achieving here. Can't take this pawn, then they try to trap me. I play b4. Things get a little weird. I think this, if this is not a line from my course, it's really, really similar to one. So I couldn't allow King there last move. So the point is, if they play that now, I can take this pawn. And if they take my pawn, my bishop is free to go. And I kind of anticipated this. And these positions are, if I recall, just kind of weird. So my bishop is free. I'm going to move it back before it gets trapped. I guess I have to worry about bishop g6. So maybe knight h5 is a good move. Or maybe even knight e1. Let's play knight e1. Seems a little more passive is the problem, but I love the idea of putting the knight on d3 and just eyeing this pawn in the future of the game. And also if they play c5, I like the idea of knight d3 hitting the c5 pawn in case they're going for a double trap. It won't be an immediate double trap because I have bishop b6 hitting the rook, and I can always retreat this way and then play c3. So, but it does become much more tactical. This is probably like decent, but I was just worried about all these tactics with the time control that we're playing, and we are playing really fast time controls. I think I'm okay here. So this move I missed as a resource. It's interesting. It blocks the square, so maybe I had to play bishop b6 right away before going into this. But again, I think I can just get out. Lots of tactics, but I'm going to be able to remove the defender here. And so that will clear up this square for me, for my bishop. Unless, oh, maybe I miscalculated. Oh, that's a bad miscalculation. Okay. It's still complicated, though, because if they take this, this check wins material back, and so still complicated. Yeah, I think they tried to play like f6. And now I think I'm okay. But retreating the bishop earlier might have been the better course because, I mean, who knows with like, seconds to think about it. And tactics are not my forte. I win despite my tactics, not ever because of them usually, except maybe at this rating range because you have to know, some tactics as a national master. Okay, I'm going to play this to cut off the rook from doing anything remotely exciting. And then I'm going to play f3 to block in their bishop. I could have also traded, which would have been decent too. Okay, it's not worth the exchange for that counterplay for them. Although they are getting quite a bit. Okay, they can't take the pawn because then check and I kill the rook. Well, okay. Exactly like this. So they had to take the f2 pawn, and they had something. I don't even know if I should have let them go on to the 7th in that position. But oh well. 1490. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. d6. Knight f6. Man, these fast time controls are no joke. They're really fast. Okay, so here, just know you can fall into a trap. If you play knight bd7, you're toast because knight g5, and you can't block that. So you have to play bishop e7. Then usually it'll just transpose to the main line. If they don't play d4, I'm playing d5. So that's kind of my MO, and I'm going to illustrate that now. And I just think these positions are better for me. They're just really easy to play. The bishops just come out to friendly squares, and no, bishop e6 is also good. Just like extra guarding it. Yeah, let's play bishop e6. Where's that going? There? Okay, no, it's not going there. Oh, that's what they're going for. Okay. Well, I'll take the bishop move, and then I can't push. So I could push or take. I like the idea of opening things up because it seems like I'm better developed. But I also like the idea of pushing because that center is really strong. So we'll just continue pushing. The D file looks like it's more owned by him. I'm slightly up in development because this knight is funky and this rook is hard to move. Okay, so they're looking for some kind of release. Makes sense. Got to keep up the pressure. They're attacking this pawn, so keeping up the pressure comes with like some tactics. Let's just like develop our rook into the game and eye that pawn indirectly. So now if they play knight takes knight, I just take, and then I play bishop takes bishop, and their queen is hit, and I just win material. So they've got to do something else. 2 minutes for me, partly explaining it. I got to really treat these like they're kind of 2-minute games because there's 1 minute of explanation and then 1 minute or 2 minutes to actually play it. This is just winning. Yeah, even if I didn't have bishop takes bishop at the end of that, the bishop is going to hang. So, yeah. Unfortunately, not the most beautiful game. I'm 1498. Let's make our last one. A diamond in the rough game. Hopefully, playing a 1524. So we started to move to the next level. And we get one more Philidor. Okay. Bishop g5 is surprisingly popular. I'm a little shocked. Knight bd7 looks good against it. Bishop e7 looks good against it. Looks like I can play a variety of moves. And we'll just do this. This kind of reminds me of the tension variation. Usually they don't want to play here, though, because they don't want to trade these bishops. So what I recommend doing when they do that is to play h6, and then ask them whether they want to see, like, now they're stuck over there. And so I can play queen b6 without worrying about them harassing me on e3. Knight h5, I think I've given my course. They always sack here, but then you like take there, and then you can take the knight, and you end up better, but c6 is simpler. So we'll go simpler at this rating range. I don't think like maybe if I'm playing a 2000 and I have to like prove a win, then maybe I'll take some more risk. But at this rating range, usually you can just do kind of more simple play to gain an advantage. We'll take that pawn. We're just kind of zeroing in. So this is not a bad move. We'll play rook e8. The goal here is to just kind of indirectly eye this pawn. Maybe I'll take one day and play knight c5, and just everything will come right at the e-pawn. And I will also be threatening to take out that very nice bishop. This bishop is very good in the Philidor for them. So in the Old Indian, we want this. In the Philidor, we want this. Okay, so I don't want to take back with the knight because then they'll still have this d-file pressure. So usually when they take, we always take back with the pawn. On the advantage to them is that they neutralize this rook from coming into the game, taking back with the bishop, because if I take back with the knight, lose that pawn. The disadvantage for them in making this trade is that they have nothing to attack on the d-file, and they have no push threat. So now there's just a huge sigh of relief. I don't have to worry about a lot of the tactics that would help them in this position. And I can develop my pieces to strong pieces, and yes, I will take that bishop. As I said, I like that bishop. And I will just continue developing my minor pieces. I have the bishop pair, but it's not easy to just make that a win. So some skill is going to be required. They're going to double up. I'm going to just say no. You can have one rook on that file, but not two. because sometimes with two, they can do things to you. So I'm going to play on the queen side. Try to open up some files so my rook is good. I'm not too eager to trade the rooks because I'm playing for a win and I would like to keep some material on the board. And also logistically, if the bishop takes back, then the e5 pawn will fall. So I'd have to take back the queen, which looks a little passive. Continue to expand on the queen side. The Philidor way. They can play knight b6. It looks a little scary, but then their knight is trapped. So this is a much better move, more active move. And I'm going to run. Run like a coward. This is a good move. They're threatening to win the bishop pair, and I don't want to play bishop c8. I love the bishop pair, but I'm sorry, I can't doom my rook to just sit on a8, all in the name of the bishop pair. There must be limits. Okay, attacking the knight. Just try to stay active. They have rook d7 at some point. but they gotta, if they want to play that, they have to play b4 first, and I'll be in time to play rook b8 and take that away. Oh, this position's hard to win. I feel very safe. It feels like my position is very solid. Their knight has gotten a lot better, though, through all these maneuvering. The tactics are a little wild in these like time variations too. You can't really calculate. So sometimes you just kind of like, yeah, this looks good, and then they have some resource that not super intuitive. And sometimes, you have a resource that wasn't super intuitive and is much better for you than you even planned. Okay, so now that's a disadvantage because they're going to get double pawns, and I'm going to get this super active rook in the game. My bishop needs to be better. Be better, bishop. Be better. So I'm going to move it here. Okay. And attacking that, let's defend it while also giving my bishop retreating squares while also attacking the pawn. I don't know why they're so afraid of trading rooks. It looks like my rook is beautiful. I mean, I'm a little mildly insulted that they don't think that's better. That's worth their time. Okay. H5. No, H5. What am I thinking? This is at the end of the speed run when I go a little delirious. Okay, queen takes. They would just take the pawn. So queen takes pawn is what I'm looking at now. Huh. Super complicated. Super complicated. I think I'm going to, given the rating range, play it a little on the safe side. Although I'm really, really tempted to play like queen takes pawn or to do something sacrificey. There's no reason to take a ton of risk, and I have 30 seconds, so I need to give myself enough time to finish the game. And my opponent has a minute, so my opponent does have the time edge here. The goal of this is to discard that square. I really keep wanting to come in, but I also keep getting scared to come in. Play g6 to play h5. Play h5, h4, loosen things up a little bit. Queen f6. Maybe I should take. I feel like I have that knight under control. I like the option to always be able to take. If they move back, I'm taking. Okay. They undoubled their pawns, but they also lost all the attack on c6. So, mixed bag. Position's very even. But not simple. So, not a bad... I'm not worried about playing this position for a win. It is complicated enough that either side could win, especially in time pressure. I have 21 seconds. They have 34 seconds. Stop the checks. In fact, I should comment probably a little less. This is fun. This is a good game. My opponent's playing well. Really liking this. Try to take this pawn. Okay, got it. Let's just make this rook passive. Make it have to guard everything. Need my king in the game. Rook there wins a pawn. Didn't see that in the speed chess. There. And I stop it. Check. Check, just so I can think. Oh no, but that's checkmate. Yeah, good game. And that closes my speed run. I am officially 1500. Let me know in the comments whether you think the 5 minutes was better or whether you like the time rushes and the more sloppy chess. Totally up to you. I'm happy to do either in future runs. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for all those who subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me, and I'm glad you're liking the Old Indian Philidor speed runs. It's exhilarating for me. Stressful to comment while playing, but also extremely fun. So I'll see you next time.